Hello, lovely guests. Hello, people listening. This is our regular show. We're pretty regular. We had to switch around a bit because I was having so much fun in 40 centimeters of powder. Colin Robinson, the program coordinator, and Michelle Hall, campaign and donor relations lead. I'm laughing because we always have so much fun. What is brewing in the biosphere? Hi, Colin.
Good afternoon, Cam.
Hello, Michelle.
Hello.
Hello. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah, just rolled in from Yuki now. It's a
yeah?
beautiful day. Enjoying all of this wacky, wild spring weather.
It's wacky.
Blizzard, sunshine. You got it all.
I was, like I said, 40 centimeters of powder. Spent a couple days at Mount Washington. Driving home today, it was sunny, and then it stormed, and then it was literally like wet snow. And then as I turned at the junction, Euclid and Tofino, shining like a national guitar.
Shining light.
Beautiful.
I'm wondering, because this is the first time I've been on the radio in the afternoon,
yeah.
and I'm wondering if you're going to bring it as hard as you do in the morning.
You know what? And there are some ways that I'm actually consistent. Also, I've had a bit of a break, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I wasn't here this morning. Luke was here, and he'll be actually coming back. But I came in specifically
for us
to be with you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited.
Afternoon radio is a special kind of radio.
It really is, especially if you're not already tired from the day and you're invigorated from hurting your 55-year-old body on powder snow.
Plus, you've just been ripping. Like, that's a good feeling to maintain throughout that entire month now, really.
I literally thought this in my head, and this is a positive statement I'm about to make. Okay. When I am 90, I was thinking when I was ripping down the hill, I will never want to forget how strong I feel.
That's
and
awesome.
I engaged in it, and I leaned in. Yep.
Love it.
Still can't catch my son, who's only not even 9.
Little frother.
And maybe I'll put that at the back of my mind for a bit, but I don't think I'll ever catch him if I can't catch him now.
Little rippers. You got to do it when you're that young, I think, to get really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, start them young.
Yeah, tons of jokes just ripped through my head. I was going to say, but all I did was like play weird war games with my friends, and I don't know what I'm good at right now.
You turned out okay.
You know what I'm good at?
Fine.
Afternoon radio.
You are.
All right. We've caught up. So let's start with you, Colin, if that's all right.
Yeah, for sure.
We just, last time we talked about grants. We talked about the dates and applications and how much and what for. Now they're closed. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, many of them are closed. A couple of them are still open.
Most grants, right.
Yeah, but we still got neighborhood small grants, the Biosphere Research Award, New Channel Language grants, education awards, all still open.
Oh, that's a lot.
That's still a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was worried for a sec.
We can talk about those later in the program.
And so I want to know this. With the ones which ones are closed? How about that?
Yeah, for sure. The ones that we have received an amazing bunch of ideas for are the Vital grants, which are meant to support big partnerships between organizations locally to tackle complex problems. Arts and culture, youth and education, community development, and research and environment. So those are part of the annual granting processes that CBT administers.
Yeah.
So you see those grants every single year, usually in the springtime.
Okay, so I can feel the afternoon excitement energy kind of brewing and burbling within me. How many people applied? Was it like so many? Were people pumped?
Yeah, I would say we definitely see significantly more applications than there is money to support, and most of the applications are amazing. That's the thing. It's many grant streams that nonprofits access are based elsewhere. They're sort of applying for funds that are provincial or some charity that's not here, but these grants are unique because they're money that's sort of from here, and the decisions are made by volunteers who live here.
Right.
So yeah, in the total number of applications received for those grants that I mentioned is about 56, spread between 5 different grant areas.
Is that a regular number? Is that same as last year, year before? Is it increasing, decreasing?
I would say it's increasing a little bit. One of the things that I have observed lately is bouncing back from the pandemic. So during the pandemic, we saw a huge need. All these nonprofits, who are primarily the organizations that are applying for these, nonprofits, First Nations. Occasionally you might get a public body applying, but there was a real challenge in capacity to even go out and apply for the grant.
Yeah.
And now what we're seeing is organizations really bouncing back on their feet, leaning into all this cool programming, remobilizing their volunteers, getting their staff, getting things back on board. And so for that reason, I would say we're seeing more grants, but it's not like there's more need. It's just organizations are getting their capacity back.
Can we know, do the people that are receiving them, do they already know?
No, they do not.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we can't talk about that right
We
here.
can't talk. We don't. The committees that make the decisions, the local volunteers, haven't even had time to review them all. Because that's the thing about volunteer committees. People aren't paid for this, and most of the time, people who are volunteering for other stuff, and so it's powerful to obviously have local volunteers be the decision makers.
Yeah.
But it's not like they're on salary and the next day after the grant applications come in, they're there at their desk reviewing it.
Are you saying that sometimes it can be a problem that volunteers volunteer? I don't want to. I'm just teasing.
I volunteer on the youth committee for those grants, and it's so exciting. Like you just brought up a good point before. Like it's so exciting to see the applications to read like the wacky and wonderful ideas that folks have in the community for a project. So as a volunteer, I really enjoy getting to see what's what are on people's minds. What do people want to apply for? And I'd never thought of that idea before.
We can't discuss specifics, but can we speak in generalities? What are some of the wacky, wild, fun things that may or may not receive a grant?
I don't know what's the confidentiality as a volunteer to share that info now.
Yeah, I mean, I would say because I don't administer some of the other committees. Like I pretty much look specifically at the research and environment grant stream, so I can't really speak to the other ones. But I would definitely say in general, you see a lot of local priorities floating to the top through these grants. So while it's hard to say, X, Y, Z are the local priorities, just by virtue of what activities are being asked for, it's a pretty pure expression of where the communities are at and what the needs are.
All right, so nothing specific.
Well, the ones, I'll be very general. The ones I've read so far have everything from music involved to environment. There's a few applications from the schools for more education-based projects. But there's a wide range from all different organizations.
And
which
one
is
thing
cool.
I can add to is the proportion of applications that we see is not uniform across the board from those grants. And this is not just this year, but every year. We always see more applications to arts and culture and youth and education.
Yeah. Makes it very hard to decide.
Do you have an average age of people that are applying, or is it all across the board as well? Like lots of young people?
That's a good question. We don't actually ask for people's age in the grant application, but just by virtue of it being a small town and us knowing who the applicants are.
But there are also those specific youth-led grants as well, which are all youth.
Right.
Yeah. That make the decisions and do the projects, which is great.
Where does all this money come from? Who's giving you the money to give all this money to people that are wacky and wild and deserving?
Not everybody, but most people are deserving. I can speak a bit to that. So this is a big question lots of people may have about CBT. Yeah. The base of the endowment that was created 25 years ago when the biosphere was designated is called the Canada Fund. And that is it was at the time a $12 million one-time contribution from the government of Canada to the communities of this region. And that's actually how the CBT got created. It was a board of directors with representation from the 5 nations, Heshkwit, Ahousaht, Clayoquot, Ucluelet, and Toquat, and then the municipalities, Tavino, Ucluelet, and the ACRD.
Right.
And so, the idea was to make the communities have to cooperate and work together and have long-term benefit. So that endowment fund has to grow for inflation. So we're not allowed to chip away at it. It needs to make sure that it's going to be there in perpetuity. But any money that is beyond what is just growing with inflation, we're allowed to make grants and education awards. Right. So that's what gives us this stable basis of guaranteed annual income to make sure that these grant programs run year after year, even though they're not that big of grants in the grand scheme of things. It can only make $6,000 grants for the smaller ones and a couple of $20,000 grants here and there. But thanks to CBT's relationships with other donors and organizations in the area, things that Michelle has been very involved in, we're often able to tap in, work with them to say, hey, these are all these projects, the CBT endowment can only support this many,
right,
but can you chip in? And maybe Michelle can speak to a bit of how that process has looked in the last couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. For the youth, the example before, the West Coast Sustainable Tourism Association, that's a mouthful.
It is.
Were really generous last year and helped us top up the funds needed so that all of the youth projects were supported. And they also supported a Vital grant as well. So they gave $48,000, which is incredible. And it meant that all of the youth projects last year were supported. So that's just one example of how the community are giving back to some of the work that's being done beyond CBT's funding capacity.
So you don't have to answer this question, but I mean, I make up a story. I know a little bit about how it works. So you get $12 million and then you get, say, 0.3% interest on it. You don't touch that main thing, right? You just try to build. And plus you probably have other streams of people who are willing to help you over the years. Did you have to use any of that base for the new building?
Oh, well, hang on. What's the question? Are we using the endowment for the building?
Yeah.
No, we're not.
Great.
We're not using the endowment.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, there's certain rules around the endowment, which
Right.
Colin probably is better, well-versed at speaking to than me. But the endowment is all, the Biosphere Centre is all
Right.
funding through grants and donors and, building those relationships with donors we have and finding new donors. And yeah, I'm excited to share more on the funding we do have later on. Yes.
Do you want to say something else, Colin?
Well, and I can add in that while we're not directly using money from that endowment to support the Biosphere Centre, the stability that it provides makes it much easier to make a pitch to donors, because you can say, hey, we're not about to disappear. This is a long-standing organization with deep roots, boards of directors from different communities, and this endowment behind it that we're literally not allowed to gas. So it actually makes it a much more compelling pitch when we're reaching out for funding.
And if we did use the endowment fund for the Biosphere Centre, we wouldn't have the money for the grants.
Yeah, of course not. Do you, as a nonprofit, you are a nonprofit?
Yeah.
Yes. So
Charity.
A charity.
Yeah.
Do you? Can anybody look at the numbers? Like, is that an online thing? Like,
Yeah.
and this is me being I'm a curious human.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering
Love
how, like, and you don't have to answer any of the questions. I'm just telling you how I think. Has the 12 million grown? Like, is it now like 15 million? But the interest is increasing. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Like, that's exciting to me.
for sure. And
Because you think even if it's 3% or whatever, not that much, that's a lot of money on $12 million.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, part of the agreement around the endowment fund is that we have to have an annual professional audit every year.
Right.
Which is way above and beyond the average charity or nonprofit. So we get a full third-party audit every single year to verify that this stuff is legit. And then we obviously publish all this information. It's in our annual reporting and accessible on the CBT website.
Love it. So we're kind of leaning now into, I of course, I'm always excited about the progress of the new building. When you do get your new space and everything's up and running, how is that going to affect? Will that affect the granting process at all? Will that change anything? Will it make it more streamlined? Will it make it better? Will there be less?
Yeah, exactly. All of those things that'll make it better.
Yeah.
Because there is really first of all, there's no real dedicated permanent space in this community for all of these wonderful projects and ideas and collaboration and training opportunities to happen in. No central space anyway.
Yeah.
And I always think back to my time at Surfrider Pacific Rim when I, took over that chapter, and much to my husband's delight, everything was run out of our living room because there was no affordable space for us. And I remember being shoulder to shoulder with folks with sewing machines, like making all these reusable
the
bags.
Stitch and Beach.
Yeah, the Stitch and Beach. And, Al would be sitting there on the couch while like 15 volunteers are all making these bags. I mean, the examples are endless for Surfrider before we got a space. But the point is, there was nowhere at the time that was affordable or that we could go to collaborate with others.
Well, that's not like now.
Well, exactly. And this is the thing. I think one of the things that we see in a lot of the grant applications is, part of their budget includes like, something for a space which folks are getting creative with. I mean, we just talked about it before about getting creative with space. There's folks that are so passionate and determined about their work and projects that they make it happen. But often they're making it happen in a hotel room where you've pushed the couch to one side, or you're doing something in someone's kitchen that you shouldn't really have a health certificate for, and all of those examples. And the Biosphere Centre, it's going to have a teaching kitchen. It's going to be able to host preservation workshops and canning workshops, and you're going to be able to take a culinary food certification program without having to leave town. You're going to be able to use the education workspace to have a school program there or after school program. You're going to be able to visit the exhibition center and have your own artwork there. Like, the list of examples is endless. And so when it comes to the granting program of like, how is the Biosphere Centre going to impact this, it's going to just really increase the opportunities for folks to collaborate, thrive, grow their ideas, sell their jam, whatever it is.
Sell their jam.
Create their new music album. I don't know. Like, the list is endless of opportunities there.
Well, of course, you must know all of the things you're saying are I'm getting excited. I'm feeling the brewing. I'm feeling it cooking. I'm feeling the jam. When's all this happening again?
Yes, I'm glad.
I want to know what's going on.
I'm glad you asked. I think you should be one of our ambassadors on our team. I feel like you probably know the most about the Biosphere Centre out of all of our folks, because you're always here listening to us. We're at 12.1 million, which is a staggering amount of funding. We're really grateful to the recent boosts of funding that we've just had. And we applied for the building permit in February, which is huge, with the District of Tofino. And we're in construction documentation phase with Nakum Management and Construction. And hopefully that will be wrapped up in May. And then if we have the funding, we will move forward with mobilizing the project. So that's where we're at.
You could have a golden shovel in the ground in June?
Well, I don't think it's an actual shovel in the ground in June. I think they start to mobilize the project is the official term. And I know that CBT do things in a good way. And we've had folks from Clayoquot Nation who've really helped us do things in a good way by coming to the land and blessing the land. And we've been working with Chris Teacher and Hayden Teacher and had some wonderful ceremonies. So I think, as well as all of the official paperwork things of mobilizing the project and, getting all the workers on site, I think those pieces are really important too. So let's just say this year, the golden shovel in the ground. And I hope you'll be there with us when it happens.
You know what? I would be honored to be. I like to get into photographs. So
the other thing that we haven't talked about, though, I wanted to bring something new about the Biosphere Centre, because I'm always talking about the same stuff a little bit.
Well, that will change eventually, because it'll be done, and then we'll be talking about new stuff.
Yes, exactly.
But I'm happy to hear a new thing.
Well, I don't know whether we've ever shared with you that the Biosphere Centre will be, when it's built, we'll have an art program there. So the art program is this vision to have the Biosphere Centre fully outfitted with art from all around the region, the 7 communities that are here. They'll be created by a local art curator, which is Robinson, who we all know and love.
Yeah, Robinson Cook.
Yes, and then we have a jury system, which means that there'll be a person from each community who will sit on a jury and decide on the art. So it'll be a really equitable process. And as you know, like talking about space, there's so many incredible West Coast artists who don't have a space for a gallery or don't have a means to sell their art and be remunerated for it. So there'll be different themes within the Biosphere Centre, whether it's a collaborative piece of art or an installation or a carving or reused art or a mural with graffiti, or there'll be so many different opportunities for local artists. So we're really excited to launch that, and that program itself is already halfway funded. We've had 2 major funders who have given us $300,000 to get that kicked off. So
that's huge.
Yeah, we're psyched.
And is it the same manner of if you get the money, then you got to sit on it and let it grow and then use it? Or is that money that can...
It'll probably be used straight away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that question
to pay
came
artists.
out clearly as I meant it.
Artists needs to be paid straight away.
Is there anything else we need to know about this? Because we've talked about it a lot, and I do talk about it a lot, and we'll always keep people in progression. Thanks for inviting me to the party.
Thank you. I just want to say anybody who's interested in learning more about the Biosphere Centre, please pop by the office or drop me an email, Michelle@clayoquotbiosphere.org. Is that my email? Yeah.
Well, you never email yourself, do you? So how do you know?
And that $10,000 beach walk, it's still open.
Right? I love that story.
But seriously, if you are someone who can open a door or think that you might have someone who might not like to learn about it, then let me know. Thank you so much for the support.
And you do have a visual representation of it on the website that people can go and be like, what are they talking about?
We do.
Time and time again.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, go check it out.
Go check it out.
And see what it is and find it in your heart to be a part of it.
Yes.
Because it really will be a community hub. It
really will. And momentum has really built momentum. Like we are over the big hump. Like we're $12.1 million. That's a lot of money. Yeah. And that's a lot of people's confidence in the project and excitement in seeing it happen. So it's happening.
Love it. And I know that you're dedicated to the process, as are everyone else on your team. And
thanks.
I think it's great. And I just love a good manifestation.
Let's manifest.
Right?
Yes.
I'm manifesting a new home for the radio. I just thought I'd chuck that one in there while we're talking. Colin, we talked about what's closed. We mentioned there were a few open. How can people get involved? What's left? What can they do? I think the language one is massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We can start with the New Channel Language grants.
Yeah, sure.
These are fairly open-ended, flexible grants meant to support cultural and language-oriented events, initiatives, activities. It's got to be the New Channel language, one of the dialects. It could be Clayoquot or Huset, or but definitely reach out to Brookwood. Brookwood is it's the go-to person if you're interested. So if you know Brooke. That is
everybody knows.
Yeah, we know and love Brooke. So, and that's technically open till March 17th, which is coming up. And just
St. Patrick's Day. You think that's a good day to do grant stuff? Isn't everyone busy? I'm just kidding.
And I just want to shout out that program is partially funded by a couple of locals who fund that program. So again, it just speaks to the passion that the community has for helping these projects come to life.
Do you need to be New Chalith or Clayoquot to apply, or house it, or Clayoquot, or anything?
I mean that is what we have seen generally. Right. I think as I don't know the specific criteria for that grant, but I think you could reach out to Brooke and find out. I think
you already covered that.
Yeah, I just like to.
That's me just asking double question.
Repetition for emphasis.
My apologies.
But yeah, that's that. One thing we have seen since that program was started, Brooke would be happy if I shared this, is that the actual capacity and size and amount of programming in the nation-led language programming has really increased. Yeah. I know that committee is steered by people who are involved in the language scene. So I think they're looking at continuing to see how this program can grow and evolve to meet the current context for language revitalization work.
How does your crew get together and say you've got X amount of dollars, you know how much you can take? How do you determine who gets $20,000 and who gets $500? Do you know what I mean? I guess I'm asking the local neighborhood party, or the lady who wants to teach a class on crystals. And I'm not saying important because it's same but different. I get they're all important. And to me, this is just my opinion, I think the support of Clayoquot and the New Channel language, for me in my heart, is massive. It's such an important thing for so many reasons. Totally. How do you determine the importance of who get and the size of the grant? Because I think the language ones are a bit more, right? Don't they go up to 20,000?
Language grants, I don't know the specific. I don't think any of them are quite that big though. But I mean, the main way to speak generally to your question is we do have these categories of grants. So we try to make up these different categories to get folks with ideas aligned with criteria, size and scope of project that is feasible. But I will say categories, while that is kind of helpful. Because you can have a committee that sits down with expertise in that area to make a decision. It's also really hard because a lot of times people's project areas don't fit into one category.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so we're kind of always doing this dance of okay, should we do away with categories and just have general applications? But then if that's the case, how do you convene a committee? Because you can't have a committee look at 60 odd applications and decide. So it is a real balance, but the ultimate power lies in the hands of these committee volunteers. And I think that's one of the most unique things about CBT compared to almost any other funder out there, is that it's not a government bureaucrat looking at a chart. It's not a staffer at a private foundation, scratching their head. It's literally people who live here. Sometimes we call in people with specific understanding if we think the committee doesn't have quite the background. If they're so really, that's one of the things that makes these grants truly like by the communities and for the communities. And one of the things we've definitely heard loud and clear from the New Channel communities is just sort of like systemic exclusion for lots of reasons, not just of CBT, but of other funding programs. So looking at different ways to provide funding, and that can look like more undesignated funding and direct funding to the nations. So that's a whole other conversation.
I don't quite understand. Are you saying that they have experienced systemic like not receiving, or are you saying, can you clarify that for me, please?
Oh yeah, both and not to get too digression oriented, but in 2008, for example, Stephen Harper's government made it so that all First Nations were no longer de facto qualified donees able to receive grants from organizations like CBT, and they had to go through a bunch of hoops to become able to receive those again. And an example of that is Heshquit, one of the smallest nations. They didn't have the administrative capacity to jump through those hoops so that they could then continue receiving CBT grants. So for a number of years, it was quite hard legally, without getting in trouble with the CRA for CBT to actually make direct grants to Heshquit, which is absolute nonsense. Like, because even considering before that, they were, those grants could happen. So we're constantly working to find ways to like hustle within this system to make it work better for all communities. And it's a challenge for sure.
Yeah. You're handling it well though. And I must not go down this rabbit hole, and I will not, but we have a new prime minister, and who knows about our government in the next little while, and who knows how that will all come out in the wash, but we'll be talking about it, but not right now, because
I have gritted teeth.
I see that you do. Tuesday nights we have a heavy metal night here, starting at 9:00, and usually I do it because I love to rock, and I went on a bit of a rampage when I was seeing that Mark Carney was going to become our prime minister. And all I said was, I don't know if a lot of people know his history and who he truly is and what's going on with Canada. But I wasn't cheering. I'll say that. And that's just my opinion, which once in a while I'm allowed, right?
You're allowed it.
Generally try to keep it Disneyland around here. But Tuesday nights, it's rock and roll, baby. And Wednesday nights, too.
Rock on, baby.
Fish Head Soup for the Soul. Do you ever hear that?
I love that show, by the way. That's Terry.
Right? No.
Sorry.
It's Crazy Fish. That's who that is.
Okay.
But yes, that's who that is.
Okay.
We try to keep it a little bit on the down low.
Sorry.
We all need a little bit of anonymity at times, especially when you're not an anonymous person.
I want to go quickly back to just a point there about the granting process while it's fresh in my mind. I think since I've started at CBT, like one of the staff brought in more of like a decolonizing process and to granting, whereas, as you know, I work in like my job as I'm in a grant writing sweatshop. Remember, Rebecca keeps me at it all day long. But what we want to try and do for folks is to take away a lot of that headache of the reporting and the filling in applications. And so a lot of what's been happening in the past few years is if folks don't have access to a computer or, find that quite overwhelming, that they can make a video of themselves. They can come into the CBT office and one of the staff will literally sit with them and help write it for them. We're just making it more and more accessible to folks who might be intimidated by this, granting process that is quite
or
colonial.
Simply just not have the time or capacity. Like
Exactly.
I remember receiving an email from a nation administrator, not going to say who or what, but it was sort of like, hey, checking like, what are your priorities? And it was so short. It was just like, everything's a priority. We're constantly putting out fires. We don't have time to write the same application year after year.
Yeah.
Boom.
Boom. It's clear as can be.
Yeah. I like those kind of communications.
Yeah. So working on being just listening to the reality and doing what we can.
All right. Let's let people know there are a couple other grants open.
Yes, there are.
Let's tell them what they are. And then we will tell them how to get involved if they want to and where to go.
Yeah. neighborhood small grants. This is small is powerful. So these ones are $500, meant to just support a small one-off event. Anybody can apply. It's not supposed to be for an organization. It's supposed to just be for, someone with an idea to gather some people and make magic happen. And, oftentimes we see, like, it might be somebody who'd be doing an event anyways out of their own pocket. And this is just meant to take that burden off them. Or, maybe it's something they've always thought about. Oh, if I could just get a little bit of, reduce a little barrier to make it happen. So that's open very soon, 2 days from now, March 15th through to the end of April. We'd like to see themes around environment, or always happy to see youth-oriented or youth-led initiatives. But we do see these as one of the most grassroots expressions of like what people are caring about in the community right now.
Right.
I want to put Colin on the spot for a sec. Did you get a neighborhood small grant for your music?
No.
Okay.
That would be an awesome idea.
Right?
Yeah.
Please, I want him to share what he's doing because it's so cute.
I
and
would
it's
love
lovely,
to hear it.
And it's music related.
I thought you were going to say that you didn't give yourself a grant because you didn't make your own process.
Nope.
So what's going on?
But it
What's
could
up?
be an example of something you could apply for sure.
What's brewing in the Colin sphere?
Guys. Well, yeah, no, this spring I did a little music circle for toddlers and babies at the UCC.
Isn't that adorable?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a couple of kiddos, 1 and 3. So I basically just had other parent friends be like, dude, you should just do this with all of our kids and invite everybody and see who shows up. And so that was just very wholesome and fun.
Love it.
But
I love
an
that
example of
Yeah.
applying for a grant.
Yeah, but one way we could use a grant, perhaps, and not just for my context, but if you have an idea, say there's facilities fees or something that need to be paid in order to run an idea.
Yeah.
You could pay those with the grant so that people don't have to pay to participate, and therefore it becomes more inclusive. And
Love that.
Yeah.
And then
So are you going to do that again?
I don't know. It's
Like you're going to have more babies so you can do more music?
don't tell Lauren. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, we'll do it again for sure. I don't know if I'd do it in the summertime. I feel like it's a good winter activity.
Don't do anything in the summer. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. We're popular. The whole West Coast is so popular.
Yeah.
There is no time to sing with kids.
No.
Well, I'm just kidding. There is, obviously. But.
Around a campfire.
Okay, so how can people we've covered almost everything. The education awards.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess, just for neighborhood small grants, just Google neighborhood small grants,
Yep.
Clayoquot Sound or Clayoquot Biosphere, and you'll find the path, or give us a call, find our number. Lots of ways.
That closes April 30th.
Yeah.
What about the Biosphere Research Award?
Biosphere Research Award is coming up. That is due at the beginning of April 4th.
Yep.
Now, if you know anybody doing a cool research project, traditionally this award is applied to an academic type project. It funds a lot of people's like master's or postgraduate work, but it doesn't have to be. But the idea is it's meant to support like a more formal, larger scale research project. It's $20,000. But it's funded in the past lots of stuff to do with advancing Newtonal flood priorities. So yeah, the most recent one is looking at coho revitalization, because coho is one of the non-federally favored species, but it's a big part.
The government doesn't like coho?
Well,
What?
I mean, I'm no salmon expert, but what I've heard is people love the certain species of salmon.
Yeah.
Funders are prioritizing some species, and that's it. That's an issue. So we were able to hear from Clayoquot, coho is a priority.
Yeah.
There was a researcher from Haum named Hutton, who is working on a really cool project to basically get some more information on an otherwise fairly unknown ecosystem dynamic.
Cool.
But we've also seen a few years ago, Chutska, Layla Rorik, apply and receive this funding to support her work on the Heshkwit language revitalization program. And now she's a professor and an amazing language activist and convener of the Heshkwit language program. So, it could be anything.
Does it have to be in relation to Indigenous projects? Could it be anything about anything, as long as it benefits the community is the general idea?
Yeah.
And the community, when I say that, as you mentioned, 7 communities, there are 14 communities, this is all one community. And that's how I see things. Everybody doesn't have to agree with me on that, but that's how I see it.
Yeah.
We're all one. We're in this together.
Stronger together.
You're the spokesman, Cam.
I'm a fan. I was born to be a Cambassador.
Ambassador.
I love that.
Thanks for laughing at my.
Yeah.
I made a joke the other day. I was in some store, and the guy goes, "You're obviously a father."
Oh,
It's like,
it wasn't a dad
I'll
joke.
take that as a compliment. And you're grounded.
It was good.
Okay, one more. There's one more, right?
Yep. There is the Education Awards. And so, these are Education Awards for graduating students or recently graduated students. And I believe we also, the timeline for the mature, we also have a Mature Student Award for folks who are not, recently or about to graduate, but that's not open right now, as far as I'm aware. But we do have, if you're a student or you have a high school student in your life, these are meant to take a big picture view at the student. It's not just the best marks. It's how involved in your community you are, how you want to, understand your values and apply them through your career. So it's a holistic understanding. And it doesn't have to just be, university studies. It can be applied to a whole host of different post-secondary stuff as long as it's
really
connected
cool.
to your community and your values.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it because I also have an idea.
Oh.
So,
Of course you do.
how can people do this? Let's tell them one more time, because we told them, and someone's driving and don't drive with your knee and try to write with lipstick on a napkin. Just relax. We got you covered. How can they do it? And how can they apply? And then they can read if we've missed anything. They'll read about all the grants that are available. All the dates are there, all the times, all the manners in which you can apply.
Yeah. We have a beautiful website. If you just Google or your search engine of choice, Clayoquot Biosphere Grants, it'll pop up as the grants page, and Neighborhood Small Grants, Biosphere Research, Newtown Language Grants, Education Awards. It's all there. So you can, just use that as your friend. Or if you want to pop by the Clayoquot Biosphere Trust office, 360 Main Street.
That's the best way from my perspective, because you get to see all the faces Michelle makes when she's either wincing or smiling with gratitude.
I'll be right there.
I know. I'm sad to hear that Rebecca's driving you like that. Do you need somebody to talk to her?
I'll blink twice if I need help.
Call the police. She's just lovely.
She's an incredible mentor. I'll just set the record straight.
We're just having fun.
Yeah.
Well, I'm having fun. Hopefully that translates to everybody else as well.
And when the Biosphere Centre is built, you can come on into the Biosphere Centre and write your grant from one of our shared desks.
I love that story. I'm grateful you invited me to the party. I feel like we've covered all the bases for now. This is what's brewing in the Biosphere.
It's brewing.
Anything else? Final words?
No, you're awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Cam.
Thanks for making time, and we'll talk again soon, because I'm going to keep reminding people of these things, because there's great benefit that can be derived for your community. You have it. You have the power to make this happen. So if you have an idea, I remember my friend Luisha one time did a crystal education for kids and took kids on the beach.
Luisha.
And there's been neighborhood block parties, which at first I was kind of like, gee, I don't know how I feel about that. But then I went to a couple and I was like, I feel great about this.
You made a friend, probably.
I made a bunch of friends, and I got to actually meet neighbors that I didn't know that I had.
That's awesome.
And also I was fed well.
Perfect.
Side benefit, not necessarily what it's all about, but it's part of the trickle down success. Thank you for coming in. And remember, folks, if you've got the money, they got the time. That's what's brewing in the Biosphere, baby. Talk to you soon.